We're on, we're good, we're good. Okay, so now we do the, where's my?
How was the club?
Good.
Right.
Yes, wonderful.
Now we ready? And I do the welcome.
Ready, and then you want to go and do it?
Okay, I'm ready. Where should I stand?
Let me see how it's here.
All these years she's done it, and now she'll be doing the introduction of you folks, but I'll be doing the introduction of what we are. So we're like sort of splitting it, and so I have to read it because I don't know, we just made it up.
Okay, it sounds, the volume is like now, that's why you're free to say this. And then you're going to start.
But remember here.
No, it's wonderful. Judy, you should connect because you can.
It is connected. It is connected right here. So, okay, now battery.
So did you just
Are you there? Okay.
So you met here in the morning
So
for the Koala program?
what do you?
And then you got there and just sort of relaxed for a bit? Had lunch?
And then went to the quality program and then headed right back.
But it would have been later at night.
Well, they arranged it for 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wi-Fi is not going.
Ground.
At
All right. Here we go.
T as in Tom.
It's good.
No, T is in Texas.
It says good.
T as in Tex.
All right.
Never since then bring
Let
you
us
or
know
that.
when you see us.
The last half hour just for
Yeah, we're on. We're on. Okay, we're on. Public view. All right. Live battery.
TAM.
Judy, please, no Geo, no. Wi-Fi is working. Don't listen to anybody since then.
All right, we're done. We're ready to go.
Okay, you could start introduction.
Dot
Also introduce them.
E-U.
Yeah. And we don't want to watch this. I think it takes too much. Okay, where's the introduction?
Everything is
Okay, it's good. We went onto her Wi-Fi. His stick wasn't. He thought it was better, but it wasn't. Okay. You ready? Okay. Well, Zara, where should I stand? The camera. You need to focus it.
Okay.
Where do you want me to stand? Should I stand here?
Yeah.
I don't want to stand in front of them. So maybe I stand
here.
over here?
Yeah,
Okay.
Good.
Oh, yeah, next about this picture. Better yet.
That's good.
Okay, ready? Okay. We want to welcome you all to the worldwide Meher Baba family meeting live every Sunday from Mehrabad, India, where the Avatar of the Age has his Samadhi tomb shrine. Mehrabad is about 6 hours inland from Mumbai and is a sacred place of world pilgrimage. Since we are only 5 minutes down the hill from his Samadhi, we are in the perfect position to take the opportunity to have pilgrims who have met Meher Baba be our guests. Some of our guests will share their stories of meeting with the Mandali or share their Baba stories. Before we introduce our guests, we will begin with the universal prayer that Meher Baba gave called the Master's Prayer. This prayer is the names of all the world religions that all the world religions call God.
Okay. Judy, introduce them.
Oh, okay. We're going to introduce our guests first. Then we will have the prayer. Zara, I can't see them. Okay. Yes. Okay. Randel Brown. We have Randel Brown here. Loupita. And we have back this week from last week, we have Paul Lebron and Marge Lebron. Jai Meher Baba. And now we're going to do the Master's Prayer given by Avatar Meher Baba. Ready?
Okay, yeah.
O Parvardigar, the preserver and protector of all. You are without beginning and without end, non-dual, beyond comparison, and none can measure you. You are without color, without expression, without form, and without attributes. You are unlimited and unfathomable, beyond imagination and conception, eternal and imperishable. You are indivisible, and none can see you but with eyes divine. You always were, you always are, and you always will be. You are everywhere, you are in everything, and you are also beyond everywhere and beyond everything. You are in the firmament and in the depths. You are manifest and unmanifest, on all planes and beyond all planes. You are in the three worlds and also beyond the three worlds. You are imperceptible and independent. You are the Creator, the Lord of Lords, the knower of all minds and hearts. You are omnipotent and omnipresent. You are knowledge infinite, power infinite, and bliss infinite.
You are
To the point, all-knowing, infinitely knowing, the knower of the past, the present, and the future. And you are knowledge itself. You are all merciful and eternally benevolent. You are the soul of souls, the one with infinite attributes. You are the Trinity of truth, knowledge, and bliss. You are the source of truth, the ocean of love. You are the Ancient One, the highest of the high. You are Prabhu and Parameshwar. You are the Beyond God and the Beyond God also. You are Para Brahma, Allah, Allahi, Yezda, Ahura Mazda, and God the Beloved. You are named Isa, the only one worthy of worship. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Okay, Randel and Loupita, would you like to tell us a little bit about your Baba story and what you're doing in Texas? And you were here last year or a couple of years ago with a group of students.
That's right.
Would you like to share?
Of course. Thank you for having us. It's beautiful to be with you all today. My name is Randel Brown, and I'm from Laredo, Texas. I'm currently working as a university professor that trains special education teachers. So I've been doing that for the last 22 years in Laredo, and I'll let they tell you a little bit about what she does there.
I'm a teacher for the visually impaired. I work for one of the districts there in Laredo.
Like a little slower. I didn't understand what you said.
I work with students that have visual impairments. And I work for one of the districts there in Laredo, Texas.
And you've been there since?
All my life.
Oh, you're from Laredo?
Yes, I'm from Laredo.
Okay. And what made your interest in working with the visually impaired?
I'm a special ed teacher, and that's what I like to do.
It's a little dark here. So, would you mind telling? We'd love to hear your Baba story of how you heard of Baba and your journey.
Okay. Like a lot of people, I've been on a spiritual pathway for a long time, probably starting from my youth. I had decided at one point in my life, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and I decided that I wanted to be a pastor. And this was very early in my life. maybe 13 or 14. But by the time I had reached college age, I had begun to rebel against the pathway that my parents were leading me down, as a lot of youth do. And I decided at the time the thing that made sense to me was to become an Episcopalian, which was a little bit far-stretched for Southern Baptists, but I began down that pathway and eventually became a clergyman in the Episcopal Church. I did that for several years, but there are a couple of reasons why probably it didn't suit me at the time. One of them is I was simply too young, too inexperienced, and very unwise, as most people at that age. And so I found myself in situations working with people who probably had much more experience in their own pathways. And I also became conflicted about what I said from the pulpit. I felt it was a little bit dishonest for an individual to espouse something if that wasn't truly their set belief. And so my search led me elsewhere.
What was it that you were hearing yourself say when you're preaching and being very uncomfortable with what it was? Was there anything in particular?
A lot of it stems further back to my childhood, but my real problem was there were so many other traditions that weren't accepted or included or respected in my tradition. So I didn't have an answer to that big question of how is it that across the planet there are other belief systems and we can stand in our own and say they don't have a pathway to God. And so that was
within the Christian community itself, you're having this conflict. So how could you?
Right.
Didn't make even less sense for the world.
Right. And so that was my real genuine conflict, was that very issue. So I spent a number of years looking at other traditions, contemplating, praying, and looking for that kind of answer, and really didn't stumble upon it at any time.
At any time during this awareness of needing answers, was there ever a question about the existence of God? Was there any doubt in that realm?
That wasn't my real problem. That I didn't have a big question about. That seemed to me to be a universal idea, and so that didn't put me in conflict. I didn't have a problem thinking about that. I had a problem thinking about the specific theology of religions.
Why they all don't see any unity.
Right, and why we can't simply respect and accept that there may be a pathway other than that. Now that was how I felt at the time, and again, many years passed. But I feel now like it's not a question of when I found Baba, it's a question of when Baba found me. And that wasn't going to happen until my heart was ready for that. And so it really happened quite simply. I thought of myself as a person who knew a lot about religious traditions. I explored traditions in other countries. I felt like I had experienced a lot, but I found a small picture of Baba in a store in Corpus Christi, Texas, under a piece of glass on a desk. And it was a curious photo, and it struck me immediately, but I asked, who is that? And the person running the store answered and said, well, that's Meher Baba. And I thought, I've never heard that name before, which was shocking to me.
You thought that into yourself, you didn't say it out loud.
No, but I thought, well, how come I've never seen this person? How come I don't know about this?
What year is this?
What year? This is 5 years ago, right?
5 years ago.
4 years ago. So of course I immediately went, well, I said, how do you spell Meher? So I immediately went home. And of course, when you punch that into the computer, there's so much that comes forward from that. And I began to read, and the crux of it is, what I found out is that Baba says he's the avatar. He has been the avatar before. That gave me the explanation of why there's so many traditions. And it also gave me the first time in my life the opportunity to respect those traditions. And even to respect my former tradition.
Because you realize it's he in different incarnations, and those all had different paths that are still
one and the same.
How did that feel when you discovered that?
It's almost like a burden lifted from you.
Uh-huh.
It's a freedom. It was the recognition that all of those times before, when I would buy into something, it always meant that I had to reject something else. With Baba, you don't. With Baba, you don't have to reject any of that. And in fact, I saw a book one time that was written by, I think, a Catholic priest, that said, without Buddha, I couldn't be a Christian. And so to me, the answer is, without Baba, I couldn't be a Christian. I couldn't be a Muslim. I couldn't be a Hindu or a Buddhist. So that was the moment of clarity for me, was that I don't have to reject. I just have to simply accept that the avatar has been here long before my thoughts began, and hopefully will reoccur in a few hundred years. It also makes sense to me then why every tradition seems to be messed up a little bit. Because when the avatar comes and gives us the truth, there is that moment when it's clear, but years pass, then we begin to include all of our own frailties into that tradition. And before long, we become a group that's oppressive of somebody else or someone else, or we just include too much of ourselves in that, rather than sticking to the purity of what was said. So it may happen again, and the avatar will come and tell us once more that God has spoken enough. It's time for us to listen and to put it into practice. So for me, that was the moment of clarity. So that was 4 years ago, I guess.
Loupita, were you?
Oh, I was
On
not
journey
in the
with
same
him?
plane with him at all. I've always known Jesus, and for me, coming from a Catholic background, is Jesus, which is my Mexican God. I always thought of him as Mexican. And when he came to his realization, I was like, what are you talking about? He can't be Jesus. He's Baba. He can't be the same person. It was so hard for me to understand that. So he was happy because he found what he needed, and he left me like all messed up.
Out in the cold?
Yes. He's Jesus, and that's the only person I know. I said, no, it's not possible.
Yeah, Jesus is not Indian, he's Mexican.
Exactly. so then we come here, And I stay at NPR, and I'm having such a hard time because all this energy, and there's this picture of Baba looking at me and following me, and I was just like, but before I left it, I was able to realize that they are the same person, or that they're the same.
That was your first trip. When you came on your first trip, you had to go through this tremendous struggle within yourself.
Tremendous.
Because
I'm the type of person that just, whatever you tell me, okay, I'll just follow along. But
not with Jesus.
Not with Jesus. I mean, he's been with me all my life. And for them to say, oh, no, he is Jesus. What? Doesn't look like my
So you said by the time, how long were you here on that trip?
2 weeks.
2 weeks we were here.
So what happened during those 2 weeks that led you inside to some comfort area with Jesus and Baba? What happened that, I mean, that's quite a door to go through.
Well, I don't know if Baba wants me to say it, but you're asking him, so I imagine he does. I was sitting, at the NPR, and there's this tree there, and I just saw Jesus' face. And I took a picture of it. And I saw it on the picture, and then it went away.
The picture of the tree and the picture in your, so it was for you.
It was for me.
Wow. What tree was it, out of curiosity?
Where
Was
the
it
playground, the little playground up front.
the children's playground?
There's a tree there.
The one by the slide, I mean the circle thing, or the one by the steps as you're walking on the path, that big, like a eucalyptus tree?
The one next to that.
The round thing. Okay, so it's a neem tree. It's the neem tree there. It's a young tree.
So that's how it happened.
You saw it on the trunk? I mean, on the trunk of it, or
Yes.
that must have blown your mind.
Yes. It still does.
And the fact that it disappeared from your photo must have blown your mind.
Well, no, I just thought it was meant for me. And
Did you see it, Randall?
No.
No,
she
and if, because I didn't want, someone asked me at NPR the other day, and I told Randy, Baba doesn't want me to be telling this.
Why?
Well, I don't know. And then now that you're asking, I mean, it's,
I mean,
everyone's
look at
hearing
Baba
me.
appeared on the tree. Look at the mirror's eye. The whole darn world knows this. You know, Baba appeared, and he did that for Mara. But he was there not just for Mara for that time. It was there for until the mid-70s.
Maybe this type of appearance is an excuse,
Yeah,
to someone, but it's always universal. What he always do.
I mean, but it's up to your heart whether you want to share that or not. That's totally up to your heart. But I'm happy that you shared it. I mean, to me, that touched my heart to hear that. So I'm happy you shared it. But if you don't feel comfortable in the future, I mean, that's 100%. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong in sharing when someone experiences things with Baba. I don't know. But I think what he always says is to look in your heart and how you feel about that. I think that there's no other answer to that. And if you feel joy in talking about it, I felt joy in hearing it.
Yes.
I did.
Then how was your experience after that? How was your feeling?
Oh, good. He's my Baba. He's the one I pray to, and I know that he is with me all the time. I can feel his presence in my life.
Yeah.
You changed after that? After you saw it?
You can still love Jesus from the depth of your soul because it's the same divine being. Was just a different time he was here. That's all. That's only that.
Well, I do understand that now, but it was not.
Man.
Like, I would argue with Randy. I said, no.
And yet on your first trip, he touched your heart and he showed you himself. That's
He touched her before because she agreed to come on this trip.
yeah. But that was how long? This is your second trip, right?
Third
The
trip.
third trip. What was the first trip? right afterwards, or when was it?
The first trip was 3 years ago, 3 summers. The summer before that,
That's when we met.
yeah, before she had this experience, we went to Oklahoma to the Heartland Center. So we made that trip, but this was before we came here, and she took that picture. And she did tell me when she took the picture, she told me the experience, and she brought her phone and showed me a picture that was black.
Oh, the whole thing went black.
It was just empty.
Not even the tree.
No.
Tree went too. It
So
was,
he burned the digit and all the bits. Burned
which
the
is
bit there.
interesting because not even having the tree there, it's like he's making it so obvious that no, you didn't imagine it. I'm letting you know you didn't imagine it. I'm removing everything so you know that. I mean, he made it such a
Yes.
obvious thing. Yeah.
That, to me, that's the wonder of Baba, because he finds you in the way that's best for you.
Mm.
And we are totally different people on our spiritual journey. And he found me how he knew he had to get me. And he found her the way that was best for her. I probably would have passed out if I saw a face on Sheree first. But see, she's much more intuitive than I am.
Yeah.
And much more with that really deep, heartfelt sense. And so for her, it had to be that way. For me, it had to be an exploration. And so he finds us the way it's best for us.
That must have been such a welcoming experience for you to know that she now can feel what you're feeling, and she now can feel what you're trying to express. I mean, she knows now, she sees now, she feels now, and so it must be the harmony and the unity between that and the oneness in the relationship from that. It's got to be so enriching.
And for her, it seemed like instantaneous. But that's not really true. The picture was a one-time event, but that was the capstone of her own heart exploration that had gone on before. We process things differently, and
And like I say, I usually go with the flow, and that's why I was here with him the first time. But
Did you, Lupita, did you have any, like Randel had questions that things weren't making sense to him and he didn't know how to make sense out of them? Did you ever have anything in the Catholic Church that questioned or anything like that?
well, I was raised Catholic, but then I became Pentecostal. And then when I met him,
How
I
did you
became
become a Pentecostal? Why did you leave the Catholic
Pentecostal,
Church?
that's very strong.
very strong. But
Did you
Jesus-
speak in tongues?
No, no.
Okay.
But what made you switch out of the Catholic Church into becoming a Pentecostal?
Someone invited me, and I
And you
go
went
with
with
the
the flow?
flow. I go with the flow. People
Did you
invite
ever
me
go back to the church?
to the Pentecostal?
No, the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I've been, but not for a service. I mean, I've been back for funerals and other things, but weddings, but not to.
So do you keep in touch with your Pentecostal group? That's like the evangelist, right? Is it something like that, or
Yeah,
Like-
more charismatic.
yeah, that's actually sweeping South America and Africa. I've heard a lot. Is this one-on-one thing, and yet you've got the Catholic Pope, who's one of the most amazing, humble, insightful, wise men in the world, and he and the Dalai Lama, are the ones that we can see, and he must be having such an impact on. But I don't know. I know I've heard that many Catholics were leaving in South America, but I wonder if he's changing that because his views are so much more accepting of of the needs of the people and not just this strict theology, but just more accepting the modern times. And I mean, I don't know, with your Catholic people, I know I've heard that in South America.
Even though we don't go to a Catholic church, we're surrounded by Catholic churches where we live. It is the predominant faith in our community. And so all of our friends, people around us are Catholic. You do see a huge movement in the Catholic Church to an endeavor to follow a genuine spiritual path. And so I believe they are changing quite a bit.
I think this Pope has to have a tremendous impact because he is so tolerant. He has brought the different religions to the Vatican. He had a Muslim service at the Vatican just a few months ago.
Right.
That's never happened in 2,000 years. I mean, he's had other denominations there and they prayed together. This is very unifying, and he says that they're all the same. They're all, God's in everyone and everything. He's in all these religions.
Okay, Loupita, I want to ask in the stop from Jesus, we moved to Meher Baba, and then I would like to hear more about your job. You have a special job. You are doing really very different service. Can you say more about it, and about those people, what you're doing for them, and also say your feeling to Baba after you know him and your job? How is it? Is there any difference?
Well, I work with students who have visual impairments. Some of them still have vision, but some of them were born totally blind. And so I work with them. I teach them Braille. I teach them how to read. Some of them they just need assistive technology. The way it has changed from knowing Baba is I feel I take my energy and give it to them and not with them. Because I also have those very medically fragile students that have visual problems, and I massage them, and I just think I'm doing what Baba would do, right? Because Baba likes to be around people and do things like that, like giving bath. Well, I don't give bath, but I do wash their hands, I do wash their feet, massage them, do all these things for them, because that's how they respond to me.
How old are the children?
Well, I see them since they're identified, could be from 0 to 21. The babies to 21. So.
You've been doing this since?
8 years.
8 years.
Yes, I finished my 8th year, but I've been teaching in the special education by 19 years.
So with being with Baba, you're able to bring in more, you give more from the heart now, or if it had an impact, or is it just have you have more of an understanding of life, or?
I think I tried to bring what my feelings, my personality to them, and be more loving and caring for every single one.
And Randel, what has been the impact in your work? Has it been?
Yes. The first time I came to Maribod, and maybe it even struck me before that, but I decided that this would be the perfect place to bring students for a study abroad experience. And when we do that at the university, we do it for a lot of reasons. Part of it is to become a more culturally sensitive teacher, to expose them to a different population than they're going to work with. The reason why we want to do that is because teachers that are training believe that the students they will serve are just like them. And none of them are just like them. So we like to expose them to differences. So this place is perfect. It's perfect because there's this incredible place to stay. there's the Mayor English School, which is full of these beautiful children. 900 plus students there. So anyway, the first year I came, I thought, this has to be the perfect place to bring them. Now, I didn't know whether anybody would even let this happen.
So the first time you came, you were scouting.
I was scouting, definitely. I'm not sure if it was conscious scouting, but I was scouting. So I wasn't sure if anybody would let us do it here. I wasn't sure if the university would let me do it. But I just decided that if Baba wanted that to happen, it would happen. If I put the work in to get it set up, he would invite the ones that he wanted to be here. So last year we brought 19 students and 4 faculty members with us. Of course, Lupe came as well. And it was an incredible experience that changed the lives of students at Mary English School, but also my students. It wasn't totally easy. After reflecting on it, I learned some things that I didn't even think about happening. One of them was I'd forgotten my first night at the Pilgrim Center. I'd forgotten her description of her first night at the Pilgrim Center. It didn't even dawn on me that that might be a issue or I didn't even think about it. But to take 19 lovely students, by the way, some of which had never flown on a plane. Most of them were in their senior year of college, or there were several graduate students too, but some of them had never been on a plane, have never been out of Texas. I convinced them, no, that's wrong, you can't take credit. Baba convinced them somehow to trust this crazy professor. So we showed up at the Pilgrim Center, and everybody knows that there's this energy there because it's full of people that love Baba, and it's full of love. And it's very hard to understand if you have no information. They were quite confused the first night. And
what was it they were confused?
They were frightened a little bit.
Right.
They had come to this place, and as Lupe described it, there were pictures of Mayor Baba on all the walls, staring at them. There were these other people from all other countries.
Hugging each other and
Yes.
and Jay Baba and then
Jay Baba. That I heard that night that a couple of them had looked up what Jay Baba means because they were afraid that maybe they were committing themselves to something. Anyway, so they were a little bit frightened or confused is a better description. And of course, now that I think about that, of course I'll do this differently.
they didn't know what to expect.
No, they just thought they were coming to stay at this place.
Not so like some hotel or someplace
Right,
and
and
go to a school someplace and
I had described the facility accurately. I did not describe the energy that they would experience, and but it didn't take more than a day for that to really turn on itself. We had a meeting the following morning, and most of us laughed about that first night. And I told them jokingly that yes, we had brought them to a cult, and we had husbands picked out for all of them. They would never get to leave India. But we laughed a lot, and I shared with them, of course, the real spirit of what a Baba lover is. And it's not someone who chases you to make you into something that I am. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And they knew that before. By the time the 3 weeks were up and we left, you couldn't count the tears because they were leaving this group of people.
all of them?
Oh yes.
What about the people in the faculty?
Well,
What?
not all the
students.
yeah, the students, but not all the faculty.
Some of them were any of them touched?
Yes. Oh yes, definitely. faculty included. I believe all the faculty were touched because they were invited by Baba. But
Differently.
yes, differently. And I think everyone walks away with their own experience from being here. I know that some of the students will return, but that's not really what really astounded me by the experience. What astounded me was, and I don't believe this happens everywhere, because I've been involved with other study abroad trips, and they go to Spain or they go to Italy or Germany, and they come back with great exposure to other cultures, no doubt. But what happened here that was different is these students got home and started to do things that were an effort to reach out to the world beyond them. They started some student groups that were about helping children in other cultures. They held, with the direction of another professor, a huge event to pack meals for children in all kinds of countries, including India. They went within 6 months, several of them went within 6 months to Haiti to do a similar thing, but it included taking food with them to pass out. But it's become, those few students that came with us have placed something in our university that's become institutionalized. That's one of the things I always worry about at any university. You can have a great event, you can do something really nice, but if you don't embed it in the culture of the university, it won't happen again. They went home, and it takes students to do this. They went home and embedded this in the curriculum. And so future students will continue to do these kinds of events, including coming back here. So in the end,
they made it part of the like you said, the curriculum, part
right.
of the life of the student to
and,
grow.
And Facebook, because students are really into Facebook, of course, is covered with these 19 students from last year all the way till now. They frequently post things about Maribod, about Merit English School, about the people they met here, and about the children they met here. And I was looking at one posted by a faculty member the other day that they went to Dara and Amrit's house for tea. And there's this sweet picture of Dara and one of the faculty members who didn't have the best of experiences here. But yet something connected with her, but with all of them. So it always happens, you know, Facebook pops up what you posted a year ago, and then they repost all this stuff. And so
yeah,
it's
for
fascinating.
anniversary-like kind of thing. But that's right. Dara is visually impaired. So again, there is your field, and here is the resident, and related to Baba, and so there would have been that interaction.
Yeah. To see them with the Merit English School students, though, was pure magic. They came to life as teachers.
Wow.
And it happened at such a perfect time for all of them because they're getting ready to go out into their profession. And the last real genuine experience of teacher training that they had was here. So it's incredible.
Did they say, give you feedback as to what made the students so special?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with our what we think might be present there, and we find out that it's not true. So that's what's challenging about for a student to go somewhere else to another culture, is they, like us, the assumption might have been that schooling is not good enough here, so the students wouldn't be performing well. But what they found was quite different. They found students that were performing well and excited about school.
Ready to take whatever we said. They were very receptive.
And that's different than any experience they'd had before.
And the respect
Oh,
that these children have for the teachers. Different ballgame than in America. A total different way of relating to the teacher.
we started to laugh about the fact that every time one of us would walk into the room, all of the children would stand up. I mean, and interrupt the class by doing so. So you got to where, I don't want to go in that room. There are things going on. They'll all stand up. And then, of course, one of the things that impacted our students was the first day they were at Mary English School, to see that opening ceremony. It's just incredible and cute. And you fall in love with all of these students. And see, this is something that, as an older teacher, and Lupe will identify with this, as an older teacher, I recognize that I've had a lifetime of falling in love with students. Our students, this was their first experience of falling in love with students. And they, of course, they all connected to different students that were there. But they put those pictures back up on their Facebook pages because they remember that child and the connection that they made. But that opening ceremony is cute because you see they're all in their beautiful uniforms.
And the rose.
And the little ones have on ties that are way too long to wear. By the time they're in high school, the ties are short. But just so cute and so beautiful. But our students had that great privilege to be amongst those children at Mary English School. And you know, the other thing that, see, this is where they begin to see a connection about Mary Baba. They experience what's happening at the Pilgrim Center. All these beautiful people that connect with you. And no matter how you want to stay at your own table, they come and join you and tell you stories and hug you.
Oh, did this happen to them?
Oh, this happened to all of them, yes.
Oh, tell me. I didn't know
So they
any
really
of that.
interacted with the other pilgrims.
Yeah, whether they wanted to or not.
Yes.
And
Many people would come to the table.
oh, yes, of course. And then the youth Sahavas was going on at the very end. So then there were a bunch of other youth that showed up at RT, and you know, they got started connecting with those other
And
youth.
their energy. Oh my God, all these from all over India, a few from the West, but mostly from India, and their energy, their fire for Baba is so beautiful.
Yes, and now
And
they're
at the Samadhi
connected.
and the artis.
Yes, they're connected with these people still, and chatting with them.
Oh, do they?
Oh yes.
On the internet?
Yes, it's like I said, just in some you couldn't. I should have expected this because you can't plan for something perfect, and but this was the perfect thing. And I'll have to admit that if there was anybody blocking things, it was me, being too worried about this or about that, or trying to control this and control that. You can't control. And in this place, as in anywhere else, I'm not the one in control. So my job was to guide them here, if possible, prepare them to interact with students, but the other stuff, they're prepared for.
I mean, not only were they blown away by the children, their politeness, their eagerness of learning in such a simple school. I mean, to us it would look like poverty, but it's actually a nice school.
Yes.
But from the West it would look like a school of poverty. But to see their great willingness and wanting to learn and the eagerness to absorb what's being taught, and then to have this young adult Sahavas at the same time before they leave with this powerful energy of fire, that must have I didn't even think about that. I remember the students, you had some here,
Yeah.
but
And I didn't know that was going on. It just happened to be the same time. So
Mm.
all of our students walked away with one of the hats from the house that year.
Oh, they did?
Yes, because they graciously had some extra ones and they gave them to us.
How cool
and,
is
and some other
that?
stuff.
And some other things, yes.
Yeah. But
Did they attend any of the functions? Were they allowed to, the
the,
students?
the Friday night concert,
The last night?
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
It was very interesting.
and there was, they loved it, by the way. I can't really, I can only describe it from my experience. I heard the most profound piece of music I've ever heard in my life. I was just astounded. And I know they walked away with an experience too. I don't know what there was exactly, but I couldn't believe it. And nothing's ever perfect, but the energy that was there that night, you can't, that was profound. It was just incredible. So they got to see that, but they also connected with them.
They got to experience that. You can't miss that energy.
Right.
You just can't miss that energy. And if you're open, how your being absorbs that, because it's joy.
Yes. When a couple weeks after we got home, of course, all of our students wrote about their experience here as part of the class. And it's incredible to read what they wrote, because something different happened for each person. But it's fascinating to read.
Can you remember enough of any of them to tell us some?
Yeah, I won't tell specifically, but because they were kind of private things, but the students, of course, that they met and worked with, the people they met in the dining hall, which is just the central hub of singing with people out on the veranda in VR.
There was a lot of the singing out there then.
Yes, and they were right along with them.
Were any of them singers, or any of them play
Oh.
music or anything?
No, not really, but we sang.
But they got into it.
Yes. They're all way more talented than me, by the way, so it sounded good. But, they did talk about being at the NPR, and in the end, they also believe this is a place to bring people. A couple of weeks after we got back, we had an open house kind of thing for other students to come and explore where they want to go. Our students showed up with their new saris on and their curtains that they had made here, and they looked beautiful, and spoke about their experience in that same life. It's something that changed their life. Now, I don't know what happens after this for those students. I know it changed them as professionals in some way. I know they encountered Baba while they were here. So I don't know what the end point of that is, because Baba will find them when it's their time. But they gave a hearty recommendation for other students to come. So next year we'll bring back the second group, and we'll see.
Randel?
We'll have other stories. I hope that when we come back next year, that some of the students can come and speak.
Maybe you bring them at Sahalas time and then take part in Sahalas.
I tried
That's a good idea.
to do that this year, but the dates for Sahalas are way late this year, and so
Yeah,
they
it
would have.
depends on different things.
Yeah.
And next year's gonna be even later, like September.
Oh, really? Well, our students have to be back in school by that time, so that wasn't going to work. But
It just some has happened. Very well has happened.
Yes.
Just wants to bring them up to.
Randall, have you shared this experience with other universities in Texas, the faculty in those departments, or beyond Texas nationally, as in an international professors conference in your area?
what we did with the experience was we wrote a chapter in a book that's going to be coming out. We didn't. have to be kind of careful when you write things, but we didn't. It's not all about Maribel, but that's the setting in which this took place. The chapter is really about how you can get students to reflect on what happens to them on a study abroad. But the examples we had to use were the examples from here. And so we first wrote the chapter, we put quite a bit of stuff in there about Baba, but the editor took it out and said no.
Because it was for school? Was it one of the?
It's an academic publication.
Yeah, that's not gonna, yeah.
But you can't help it. We tried. I tried. But what we agreed to, though, was to put in there some websites that will allow faculty to explore NPR, other things about Maribel. So we did get those in there. So it's a chapter that's kind of about how to pull out from the students their reflections of what happened. But it's in the background
These
of it.
students were also quite strong Catholics as well. Right?
Oh yeah, most of them.
And they didn't feel a conflict with Baba?
No. If they did, they never expressed that in writing.
Yes.
That's not the things that they learned or that they struggled with.
And nothing was challenging them. There's
No.
nothing to challenge there.
No. And it was interesting to me, the students that wanted to go to the Samadhi.
And especially also because they saw how here in India there's all sorts of religion and they all get along well. I mean, they saw all these temples everywhere. I mean, why can I be Catholic and be part of all of this?
I mean, probably there itself, you probably had some Jewish people, some Muslims, some Zoroastrians, some, from different, depending on what time it was,
Oh yeah.
a lot of religions there.
Sure.
Hindus, all
Sikhs,
sitting at the NPR,
Yeah.
having meals, sitting at the same table, talking and laughing.
Buddhists.
Buddhists.
There were quite a few. There was a big group from China last year, and this year.
Oh, the Chinese were
Were
there.
you
Yeah.
there when did the students come when we had that big group in China?
Yes. That was fun.
That must have been interesting.
It was fun to them, and several wrote about that, about cultural differences, and so it was fun to hear their perspective about it.
So they really had they were here at a very diverse time.
Perfect. I think anytime it's like that here, but this just seemed to be more pronounced at that time.
Yeah.
So,
We've had big groups from Russia too,
oh,
which is
Yeah.
perhaps.
During that time?
there was one person from Russia that they met there, but they met people from everywhere. You can't help it when you're there. So, from an academic standpoint, professionally, this is a perfect place to do this. And for me, it's perfect because I love Baba. So, and I don't have a hidden agenda really. It's not that. I really was looking for a perfect place to do it. But where else can you go and be surrounded by love that gives you the energy to interact with children at a school?
And it's a safe environment. The
Safe.
food is safe. You've got medical care there. And the environment's clean
Yes.
and aesthetically beautiful.
And our community is one of those communities that holds their children tightly. So I had to convince parents too.
How did that go?
Went well.
Well, they're here. They came.
We
but
invited all the parents.
to come along.
Yeah, no, not to come with us, but invited them to come and sit and meet and talk about where we were staying and all those things. And so I was able to show them all the pictures I'd had from before, tell them about the rules and the safety and that nobody's going to be wandering off by themselves.
And the women are here and the men
Men
are
are
there.
over
That must
there.
have been a surprise for them because
Yes.
that's not in the Western culture.
No, we only had one male student join us,
Oh.
and he probably had more fun than anybody. Very nice young man, but we referred to him as Krishna.
How come?
Because
Oh,
of
'cause
all
of
the-
the
All the girls
Gopis.
were all over.
All the girls, the Gopis.
Do you have anything to say about your relationship with the president of your university? Because ultimately, that person at any university is responsible for everything that's happening.
Right. And in our case, the provost takes care of these issues about study abroad, and he's very picky. One thing that happened after last year's, we got a new president, provost, and dean. So I had to go back and convince. Well, two of them had been there before, different positions, so it wasn't that hard. But I did have to kind of go back through and kind of convince them that this is a legitimate experience, a good, healthy experience. But it didn't take too long. So.
Did they meet any of the students that came?
Oh, they have an executive council meeting with all the administrators at the university every Monday morning, and a group of the students that came here went to their meeting to share with them the experience.
What was the reaction of these people when they heard the
Well,
students
our
talk?
president at the time is a very proper scholar, an amazing person, very sweet man, and he's all about students. And his door is always open to students. And so when they asked to be on that agenda, he said, of course. And he was delighted to hear what they had experienced here. The new president was formerly the provost, so he was in that same room. And so they heard from them, and so of course they knew what had taken place and the difference it had made for the students. And so no, they were excited. My relationship with my president improved over it, I think, probably.
So Bob is working through the president and the provost and the executive council, but just not openly.
They've all heard his name.
Now the parents, I was thinking about, after the students came back, did you get any feedback from the parents?
Nothing negative at all.
I mean, but then were any of them excited, wanted to come themselves or
Well,
anything like that?
No, they were actually excited that their students had come home.
Oh,
I think
they were worried.
They felt the same fear that maybe I'd taken them off somewhere. They wouldn't come back. But no, everyone in the room knows what happens when you leave the NPR and you get back home. If you don't live here, you talk about it. So I know that their homes were filled with this conversation.
The excitement and the joy that they were feeling. And they also, you had mentioned, went to the orphanage down the road.
They did.
I was
yes.
there that day.
Yes.
And
What we did last year is in the mornings we were at Marion School, and then some afternoons we were at the Pumpkin House Orphanage.
in fact, at that time, my granddaughter from New York came. We were there when you guys were filming, I believe. Were you doing some filming then? They were singing, weren't they singing? They had their little, about the trees and the water and saving, and
Yes.
the kids were playing that role.
Yes.
Yeah, I was there with my granddaughter. So she also saw your students there and saw the children and that.
And we weren't filming, somebody else was. I wish I had that film though, because it was beautiful what they did.
There was someone there with the film.
Yeah, they were filming.
Maybe you can ask Stella. Maybe
Yeah.
it's actually from someone that is associated with it.
Yeah.
That they may film some of these events that the children do, and especially because you guys were special guests there, and at the time that they were doing the performance. So maybe you could talk to Stella. How
Yeah.
long are you here till?
Well, we're going to see Stella tomorrow, I think. So
Oh,
I'll ask her about that.
Yeah, ask her about that. That would be something to have.
We want to get a chance to speak a little bit about making plans for next year. And again, I'll be careful to stay out of the way of plans, but I still need to set it up where they have my best effort. Once we're here, I'll stay out of the way.
Yeah, whatever.
Let it happen.
And we want to talk about starting with the lower grades as well, because that's one of the areas that I like. I like the younger kids, because I'm also a reading specialist, and I would like to kind of go in that route.
I
You
think-
mean to bring them to come here? The younger
No,
ones?
no,
like-
no,
No, but have our students work with younger students.
with
Oh,
the
you
younger
work
students,
with your students, oh.
We worked with, while we were at Mary English School, we were working with the older grades.
yes, the 8, 9, and 10.
And they were really good. It was really wonderful. But we'd also like to see if we could see some of those children who might be struggling to read earlier on, and it might set a better pathway for success. Not that they're not successful, because they are, but since that's one of the areas that she's a specialist in,
Ah,
and one of the other professors also.
so you'd like to work with some of the younger children at the Mayor English School
As well as
get
older ones. So
I'd like to hear what Stella has to say.
yeah,
I'm sure she was probably very thankful that you came, because a lot of times when people come, they want to just come and see the school and tour it and meet some students or whatever. But there aren't usually that many that come in a large group and have such knowledge and skills that they can share with so many students at the same time.
right.
That is unusual.
But what was great about the Mary English School students is they were ready. So they were primed. They were ready to receive and take what they could from our students, and our students were great. The thing we worked on most last year was public speaking in English. And they know English, but they're uncomfortable speaking it because it's not their first language. And our students that were here, English is also not their first language. Their Spanish was most of theirs. So they had to go through that stage where find that comfort level. And so they automatically connected. And the presentations that the Mary English School did at the end of it were incredible. They were just amazing.
What was this presentation?
They each had a topic they selected.
The students,
Yeah, Stella and
your students.
no,
or
the
Mary
Mary
English
English
School
students.
students.
Yes.
Okay.
They already had essays done. They had already practiced them, but they needed to be able to present it to someone, and we were there to teach them. Use your hands. Look at people. You already know your topic. Just talk. Use your hands. Be like an artist.
You were teaching them how to give the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah. And our students, of course, I mean, that's their forte. They've been doing that all through college. Now they're ready to teach that. And so it was a beautiful experience. But listening to the Mary English students give their presentations was incredible.
Oh.
And the thing about it is we bring these young people. It might be different if I went over there and tried to teach these students. It's harder to connect. But you bring these young people who are full of life at the cusp of beginning their career. And it's their prime. And they just connected immediately with Mary English
There's not
students.
that vast difference of age.
No. And some of the things, I mean, we guided them, our students, what to do, but they came up with these incredible opening experiences where these young children, well, they weren't that young, but where these children really connected with them, having a fun game, of some kind. And they came up with that themselves. I probably would have just stepped right in and started talking, but no, they knew. They stepped in there and connected with the students first, won them over, and then they're going to be great teachers. And I think Mary English School students had their confidence built in speaking. They know the language, they can speak it, and they just need to be confident. So it was wonderful. So,
Rewarding for both ends.
Oh,
So
yes.
rewarding.
yeah, definitely. I feel a little guilty simply because I feel like we got more out of it, but I know from the perspective of the teachers there and Stella, their students got so much out of it too. So I wasn't here to see the aftermath.
Stella, if I wasn't, gobble you guys up and not have you go.
Yes, so receptive, and I'm so thankful. Again, Baba makes a pathway, but I'm thankful to the trustees, the school committee, the staff at the Pilgrim Center, and everybody in Maribod, and Marizod too, to allow us to come here and do that. Just other people wouldn't allow that to happen.
Speak of the Marizod, tell us their experience at Marizod.
Most of them didn't get to go to Marizod. They had taken another side trip, and so they didn't get to. And that's one of the things I want to make sure that we plan out to take advantage of some of the things that are here, like even the museum tour. But in Marizod, of course, the archive building.
Did they see that?
No, but I want to make sure we do that next time.
Very unique building.
Yes, and something they may actually need to think about in the future. I don't know, but for a professional needs to see these things when they're training. So we'll plan those things out a little better. We kind of kept them busy with coursework while they were here. That often conflicted with those experiences. So we're going to reduce.
Did they go to the Elora Caves?
They did.
Oh, that is.
But we
No one
only
would wanna miss that.
had one day,
Yeah.
and they got to see a Koali concert while they were there. But next year we'll make that 2 days for sure.
And there's so much to see.
Yeah.
There's that fort too. I've never made it yet because I get there too late. There's that fort to see.
Yes.
That's what they have, hidden passageways and.
The other thing that happened that was really probably miraculous and may not happen again, but we got to go to that model village where I'll pronounce his name wrong, but Anna Hazare. Anna Hazare.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's the one towards
not-
Pune, isn't it? Where everything's open and they have solar, it's all solar stuff. And
Yes.
people don't lock their doors and.
But what was amazing is he met with us in his office
Wow.
for 30 minutes. We had his audience, and he told us wonderful things. And for our students, that was another point where they saw a connection with their faith and the faith of others. Is in his office is a very large picture of Mother Teresa.
Excuse me, I couldn't follow you. You met Anna Hazare
Yes,
and he gave talks to children.
he did. He talked to us.
Okay, in his place.
Yes,
The village he born there. Okay.
yes.
Okay.
It was wonderful.
I have to explain.
He's so famous throughout India
I think it's
for.
called Rider City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
know.
Mother Teresa, they must have been taken aback by that.
He was talking about what? About India, or I know he had connection with Baba too.
He
I
did.
heard it.
He talked about Baba.
Oh.
He did?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
And,
he has very good connection.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I heard it.
Oh.
But he also talked about kindness and loving each other and building a society that works.
Sweet.
It was beautiful.
I'm sorry, how you know that you can meet him, or how you thought about him? That
Wow.
Anna Hazare is
You
here.
know, it was the kindness of people here.
Oh, they introduced you to
They set it up and put us on a bus and took us. That was incredible. So,
beautiful.
but-
Never anybody goes there, you know.
Yeah.
It's
I did not get to heard that. How.
so there were a couple of the trustees went with us and a few other individuals from here, but we weren't sure. He's a busy man. We weren't sure if we would meet him, but because he was somewhere else, but he came not very far away, but he came specifically down to. It was amazing that was wonderful too, because that gave them this other picture of India itself and what's happening in this country. And to hear that from a person who's so involved with making a political stance.
Fighting corruption.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it that way, but
Oh, no,
exactly.
he's famous in this
Yes.
country for that.
everybody knows that.
Yes,
Very famous for that.
and so,
That's where I knew his name from. I didn't know he knew Baba, I didn't know that.
and of course, they come from a border city where they're having to think about political issues of a wall being built. And so that was an experience that probably helps give them a voice about it's okay to differ and to say it. So, but
We won't talk about walls.
Randel, I know you told me at 6:30 your driver will come
Yes.
to take you to Samadhi, but before he's coming, I should say really thank you for coming here. Really, really thank you for accepting our invitation, and we really enjoyed it. All of you were talk. It's amazing.
And I
And
look
also
forward
Judith
to
was
hopefully
genuine.
next year with your
Oh,
students
it's
you'll
beautiful.
come, hopefully.
Yeah.
we'll be here.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have, I know they'd love to come talk.
The one next year when you are coming back, all of you come here and then.
We'll fill up this couch for sure.
Indeed, we'll have more chairs
Okay.
or lots of cushions.
Oh yeah, you know here almost 40 people sometimes in chat and here they could see it, you know,
Of course.
here on the floor, and they had musicians to hear playing
Yes.
tabla and harmonium. I don't know how, but it happens. I remember in Bauji's chat and Bauji's room both, really small. It is there if you saw it. And sometimes so many people were in the line to come to the room. And every time I went in the morning, I said, oh my gosh, so many people, but a small room. Well, you gave him so small room, and you gave him many people to come and visit him. They lost him all in the alarm. And when I had a special chair next to Margie, I sat in my chair next to him, relaxed, and I saw, they are coming inside, they are coming inside, they are coming inside. And everybody's there, they all sat. And it was just thinking, oh, what is the magic here? Is a miracle here? What is it? They're all around Bauji, on the floor, on the chairs, standing, but everybody was inside.
If they fit. Put a little extra room too on the side.
I don't know what happened. And something similar happened here. Never can comprise it, but really happened. 40 people.
Would have been
they
on the
had.
stairs.
Yeah, the people sat on the stairs everywhere, you know. Don't worry about it.
Well,
Bring them.
we'll stay in touch and plan to come and speak with you all towards the end of our visit. And the students, I'm sure, will have a lot of things to say.
Thank you so much.
It was
you.
interesting for me. They met our Amrit. You know, they are really very precious people here.
They met so many wonderful
So
people.
good. So good.
Should we stop and take a break now, Jen?
Yeah.
Because you want to say?
No, you say.
Oh, then you put it on. Let me turn and say, but we'll stop and take a break. Okay, we're going to take about a 10-minute break now, and then we'll be back.
Okay, so you're going up to the Samadhi?
Yeah.
Your driver's coming, or would you like a ride?
He's
Do you
coming.
like chai, tea?
Popcorn now?
No, because
Because you're going to be,
yeah,
okay.
no.
Peanuts?
Then I'll drink water and I'll have to find a
Would you
bathroom.
like chai?
No,
Nothing?
No, no,
I watch it when I go to Pune, I have. And at nighttime, drink all the water in the morning and very little in the afternoon.
Yes.
Those are things one becomes aware of as they get older.
This time they gave me a room that is right next to the bathroom.
Oh, very nice.
So I have that door that goes right in. So that's perfect.
Yep, I know it will. Okay.
Thank you for letting us come again.
Oh, it is an honor to have you guys to hear your story and to hear how it was with the students when they left. Because it's interesting that I was there when you were at the maker. It was your last day, in fact.
Yeah, they planned that.
And
it just happened to be the day Rachel and I, before we left the next day to go travel.
So you came in August last time?
We left in August. We came about July 15th, which is about the same time we come back here.
Because Rachel came in August, and my granddaughter from New York, and that was.
Yeah, I think we left about around the 15th. I can't remember exactly. But part of them had taken a side trip for the weekend to Agra the week before.
Oh, they did. They went up there.
Oh, actually, all of them went.
Agra, Jaipur,
Yeah, all of them went to
Delhi.
flew to Delhi and then took a little trip to see the Taj Mahal. They didn't stay long because then they came back here for the last few days of teaching. But they got
To
to
come
do
this
that.
far and not see the Taj is.
Yeah, as far as tourist activities, they liked the Taj Mahal and they liked
Jaipur.
Bollywood.
Bollywood, the movies, Bollywood.
We took a tour of Bollywood.
Oh, really? In Mumbai?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really pretty fun.
I didn't know that there's an actual Bollywood in Bombay.
I think there's actually several.
Oh.
So what did they like about it? They actually enjoyed it?
Yeah. Oh, they let them do all kinds of stuff, including see filming of something that was
Oh,
going on.
really?
And they recorded
The
it.
soap opera. Yeah, and then they recorded them singing, and then they corrected the singing with their technology. They thought that was fun.
Oh.
So they had
That's
a really
cool.
good time.
Yeah, a lot of unusual experiences.
Yeah, so we'll try to do those things for them too, but the more you do like that, the more expensive it gets for them, so it's hard.
Most things are expensive. Mumbai is on your way out.
Yeah,
But going up to the Taj and
yeah, it's harder. So,
but it's not being there, you've got to have places to stay.
yeah, and we paid a company to do that part. They gave us a pretty good deal, but it's still costly, and the students aren't rich. They do get some help.
That's the nature of being a student.
Yeah, they
You
get
eat a
some.
lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and a cup of noodles and.
I'll tell you one funny thing that happened to me before I leave. They got a grant from a big family, and part of their responsibility was to fill out a postcard and send it to them from here.
Maribel.
Yes, so they all got a postcard, and they had gone to the school, so I told them I'd take it to the post office, stamp it. Well, first of all, I didn't know where the post office was, but I did find it.
There's the trustee's office.
Yeah, but the funny thing that happened, oh no, it was over in Lower Maribel where I took it.
Yeah, the trustee's office
Oh.
out right by there.
Okay. And I took it in there, and there were several community members there. And I told them I needed stamps. Well, all of a sudden, everybody gets up and starts putting a stamp on these cards, and they read every one of them.
Really?
It's hilarious.
They're eager to hear what they
Oh,
have to
yes,
say.
they wanted to know what's happening. It was funny.
Some of the residents, you mean?
Yeah,
Were
so,
in
I mean,
there?
from India.
Oh,
It
how
was really,
funny.
it was cute and funny. So,
They're happy to help. They wanted to see
oh,
what
they
they
wanted
said.
to read them. Well, I did too, but I didn't get a chance.
That's very cute.
All right, so we should go. Thank you so much again for your
Randall,
offer.
do you always have this cane with you
I do.
at the university?
Yeah, yeah.
Are people always saying who's that?
How did you get Baba everywhere?
Oh, I got those stickers from the Pune Baba Center
How cool is that?
3 years ago. But yeah, I always have it with me, and I always have a button, and I'm not shy.
Ah,
And I'm not shy with students either, because it's important for them to know what drives them.
Yeah.
And we go through an experience together to share what that is, and I share what drives me. Because if you're gonna have passion,
Wonderful. I've been looking when I stood up. I thought, boy, I'd be
Should we
asking
capture
who's
that?
that?
I'd like to capture that. Can I show this on
Yeah,
here, even though we're
sure.
off? Let's just show this stool. I'm gonna put the sound back on. Let's see, let's do this. I'm gonna put the sound back on, and, just a minute. Can I take it? Yeah, you wanna talk about that for a minute? Judy, it's cool, yeah. Close to her. I can't see. There, now we can see. Okay, there's Baba's face all up and down his cane. He got that at the Puna Center last time he was here, or the first time?
First time.
First time. And he also, tell him again what you said about your Baba button.
Yeah, I carry this with me because to help me walk, but carry it to school, and I always wear a Baba button. And I'm not shy about telling people why. And part of it is a shared experience with me and students to discuss what it is that personally drives us as a professional. We all abide by some ethical code, and we explore with each other what it is that really drives that.
Yes.
Do you do pictures?
And the thing is,
Yeah,
it's
very
important
beautiful.
to walk and to move.
You see it there.
Because
Look at this,
I'm allowing somebody to be able to remember.
this back to Baba. We're going to have you on our break.
Oh, so it's nice to see you again.
Energy is.
Oh, thank you.
Back
It's
to our
not my
break.
energy.
Bring what?
Yeah.
Tell it, it's, you don't want to see anything, you don't want to talk much?
But
No,
sugar.
No.
Okay, Zara.
No sugar. Okay. Dear Meher Baba, today we are going to close after a very nice meeting with Randel and his wife Loupita, and we are meeting you next week with another guest with another